My name is Rambhoru Dasi. I'm a disciple of Prabhupada. I was initiated in 1974. And I was a cook, devotee cook for about 35 years. Until in Mayapur, I was a Gurukul teacher. I spent 10 years in India. I was in Ireland. We established the Hare Krishna Islands there. And when I was 46, I decided to go back to school. and I got get involved in interfaith dialogue and stuff. So along the way, I discovered something called pastoral care, and spent a year on the Mexican border in the United States and confronted uh, true suffering. You know, all the suffering I hadn't seen because I was pretty comfortable living inside of an ashram, and that really confronted me with parts of myself that I hadn't seen before. You know, sometimes when you're living an isolated and insulated life, you don't go in because life is very comfortable. So this what I've started here 4 years ago, something called Karuna Care, is kind of my gift to Srila Prabhupada after spending 20 years learning how to be a professional chaplain and training rabbis and imams and Buddhist priests, and somehow or other we don't have any Krishna people on the scene. But in the United States now, we've got a growing number of ISKCON devotees who are going into chaplaincy because in the United States it's a paying job, and they can align themselves as a Hare Krishna person with dhotis and saris and Punjabi suits. I wear them to the hospital, you know. So there's not this duality between where I make my income and who I am as a person. Australia's a little bit behind in that in terms of making it a profession, but there is reciprocity between Australia and the United States, and so we are creating a seminary called the International Vaishnava Seminary, and as part of that, there will be a Master of Divinity degree and a professional chaplain training program where devotees can, from any part of the world, uh, take the training and become certified as a professional chaplain. But for the purposes of today, this is just an intro to some of the things we're thinking about that we think is really essential if you're working with people, if you're working with yourself. And it's very resonant to Krishna consciousness. But what I've done with these to shorten them and to make them user friendly for people who may not know our religious literature or the Vedic text, I've sort of taken out a lot of things to abbreviate it. If you have an interest going forward, you can go to our website, which I'll tell you about, and sign up for a training. They're online. So the topic today is about grief. And, when you hear the word grief, I'm curious to know what comes in your mind. What do you think of when I say this word grief? What comes to your mind? What do you think grief is? Loss, okay. Anything else? Sadness. What else? Yeah. Relationships, yeah. Anything else? Hmm? Pain, yeah. What kind of pain? So, when we go back to why we have loss, we have to actually go back to time as the supreme mover of all of us. That we are completely controlled by time, and because of the time factor, there's change all the time. Seasons make us change, make us. And but if you have time and change, that means you have loss. So it's an inevitable part of our existence that there's going to be loss. And so if there's going to be loss, that's natural, then there should be grief. So when we're thinking about grief, sometimes we're thinking about it as a disease or something that we try not to have, or somebody's grieving, so there's something wrong with them. But it's actually the flip side of love or bhakti. And so it's an inevitable part of our life, and it helps us grow. So I just want to make that connection with time and change and loss, because you're going to then have grief a lot. It's not just death. There are many ways that we grieve. So as you mentioned, life is a series of losses. So it's not just the death of a person, although we're going to be talking about loss of a person primarily. But if you think of your life, you can actually look back and see There are many things that we've lost. Maybe as a child you lost a toy, or your family moved unexpectedly, so you lost your friends, or your father lost a job, which had a ripple effect, or you lost your health, or maybe you lost a body part. These are all inspirations or reasons for grief. So I want us to think right now, make this a little personal. You won't have to read this, but I'd like you to take the paper that you have on the clipboard, take it out of the clip card. What I'd like you to do is take it and fold it sideways into 5 columns, so that you have 5 columns on your paper. So you're going to need to figure out how to make just make 5 columns somehow, you know. And at the top of each column, you want to write a heading. The loss, your feelings in response to the loss, what did people say to you after the loss, how did your behavior change after people said that to you, and what current behavior patterns do you notice that you developed after this? So you can write that or you can just use this as your guide. But it's a kind of an archaeological dig into your own relationship to loss. This we can do for an hour, but we are not going to. You know, this, I just want you to get started to think in terms of your own life and the losses you've had. So go back to the earliest memory that you have of a loss. Maybe your dog got run over. What did your parents say to you? Oh, don't worry, we'll get another dog. Or your cat got killed, or maybe the cat got sick, or maybe you lost a friend, or you lost your favorite teddy bear or your bicycle, and your parents said, "Oh, don't worry, it's just a teddy bear. We'll get another one." And not at all addressing your feelings. But we'll do that for a few minutes. We don't have time to do this exhaustively. You can do that later if you like. But just think about it. Go back to your earliest loss that you remember, and we'll just do a couple. Go through. If you can pick some significant losses, that would be helpful. But you're not going to have to share it, so don't worry. Nobody has to share it. Just for the sake of learning. Well, there must have been some loss in your life. There must be a loss. Come more recent. If you've moved, if you've changed jobs, if you've changed schools, gosh, you just lost last minute. I just lost yesterday. Today is now Tuesday. I lost Monday. I can never get Monday back, right? Maybe I lost faith. Maybe I lost trust in someone. Someone I really cared for betrayed me, or I thought that they betrayed me. So I've lost a friend. That's a grief issue as well, right? Maybe how I understood the world working, or what I thought was the supreme source of all life, or God. Maybe I saw it one way and something happened in my life, and now I see it in a totally different way. Now I've lost my faith. What I thought life was, I had faith in humanity. Something happened. In the United States, in September 11th, 2001, we had these twin towers came down, and it was enormous trauma for the country. And they lost faith in humanity on one level, and they regained new idea of faith in humanity as they saw the people helping clean up and care. Just do 3. If you can spend all day on this. We're not going to have time. I just want you to get a feel for some of the losses you've had in your life. They may not be big ones. Some of you may not have had a major loss. But if you think about it, and this is kind of a good retreat meditation, go for a walk and sit with yourself and see if you can name any losses. You will start writing and you'll probably not stop. They're just endless. I lost my childhood. I lost my innocence. When did that happen? What made that happen? So the reason why we go through these things is, okay, so say I lost I lost my friend. And my feelings in response to the loss was that I felt devastated. I felt lonely. I felt abandoned. And then my parents came along, or my caregivers, or my big sister, or my big brother, or my friends. They said, suck it up. God, you get over this. You've been crying for 3 days. Get over that. So I stopped crying. I stopped grieving because I didn't want to. I didn't want to be judged for my feelings. I had those feelings, but then because everybody was telling me, "Oh, this is not a thing. Get over yourself," I now began to suppress them as a result of what people said to me around them. So my behavior changed. I wasn't allowed to feel, And then as life went on, I might have had other significant losses, but I didn't acknowledge them because you're not allowed. It's not socially acceptable to grieve. So I just held them in, and then gradually, it just became who I am. I don't have any feelings. I become numb. I become dissociated. I don't even know what a feeling is. And I then, when someone else has a loss, I say the same things to them that they've said to me. Suck it up, here. Come on, you've been grieving for 3 days. Get over this already, right? I know in the United States, when someone has a significant loss in the family, they give you 3 paid days leave. That's it. And after 3 days, you better be back to normal. Take caffeine if you need to, but you better be that smiley person at work, functioning at 100%. You can't heal grief like that. It is not something you can, it takes as long as it takes. So did everybody get one or two? Did you find a loss in your life, something? Yeah, everybody? Did somebody not find anything that they lost? Just so that your head's working in that direction. Yeah, everybody found a few things? Okay. So what is grief? We just talked about pain and emotional pain and sadness and different things. But it's a natural, normal, necessary process that we all go to. And part of that has come from studying behavior of even animals. There was a wonderful movie that came out the last year or so called My Octopus Teacher. Did you see that movie? It's a profound movie about loss. Of course, as a grief specialist, you watch that movie and you go, oh my God, that's what happens. And not just humans, but animals. The octopus, what happened? If you watch the movie, what happened? A shark came and did what? Bit off his leg. And the guy filming was totally devastated because he was attached to that octopus. And he's watching, he's going every day for a month. Where is he? Where is he? And he's in a cave. He sees that octopus in the cave, goes, oh my God, he's dying now. And he feels full on grief, just like he would for a sister or a brother or a child. He was totally attached to this octopus. And he thought, God, he doesn't do anything. The octopus is totally lifeless. He's doing what you would do when you're grieving. You're tired, you're sleeping more than perhaps you normally do. Maybe you don't eat. Maybe you eat a lot. That's kind of different griefs. And then what happens after a month? Suddenly he's back up. He's up now. His leg is grown back, and you're thinking, oh my God, how does that happen? Because that's how we heal. You have to take a break. You have to tend to yourself. You're not just your physical wound, but when the heart is broken, it's a real thing. You have to tend to it. Just like if you have a broken leg, you have to tie it up. You have to spend time on it and get off your leg and rest, and then it will heal itself. So it takes time, but it's not just time. So grief feelings, you may have lots of things. You may be sad, but you may have panic attacks. You may have fear, anxiety, explosive emotions. You never think of that it could be a grief response. I know when my father died, and he was 92, so we expected him to die. But somebody said, so what's your plans now? Are you going to come back to India? Are you going to, like, I became angry. I thought, God, don't push me to that. I thought, I'm here in the moment with my grief. Don't now have an expectation I should suddenly get into the future because I'm already busy with now. So disorganization, you could feel totally disorganized. I don't know where I can't make my breakfast. I don't know. You get spaced out. These are real symptoms. Searching for the person. It takes a while for the nervous system even to accept that someone has gone if you've experienced a death, and you expect that person to come in the door if it's a close relative, a spouse, a child, You hear their voices, you forget, you keep thinking, oh, they're going to come home from school any minute, and they don't. So it takes a while for the reality. You may know in your head that the person's died, but it takes a while for the heart to catch up. And that's okay. And you're not going crazy. This is something that a lot of people feel when they have had a significant loss. They're feeling, because the people around them are not at all taking that journey with them, you feeling like you're alone in it and that you're going crazy, but you're not. It's just part of the process. It's good to know that so that you don't shame yourself for not getting over yourself. So you may have all kinds of unusual thoughts and feelings. You may have a distorted sense of time. Time may be going like in slow motion. You may totally lose awareness. We have in the hospital a lot of people who have car accidents after a loss. Why? Because you're driving and you're not thinking where you're going because you're so numb and dissociated. And many times people have car accidents. Another thing that happens when you have a significant loss is it compromises your immune system, and very often you will immediately have all kinds of illnesses. My sister's husband died a couple years ago, and she never allowed herself to grieve. They didn't even have a funeral. They had a beer party in celebration of her husband, and immediately she got lip cancer. She got her hair fell out. I mean, and she's still going through unprocessed grief. Why? Because what happens is if you don't take the time to mourn, which means expressing your grief, the body will somatize it. Your body will internalize, the nervous system will internalize to get your attention. But you need to stop and pay attention. If you're not doing it emotionally, the body will come and bite you. So these are really important health awarenesses because most of us aren't willing to do this work. You may suddenly burst out crying for no reason, sobbing. You may hold on to some object that they have. My sister has her closet still after 5 years of her husband's clothes. She can't let go of them. If you have children, sometimes when a baby dies, the parents will keep everything as it was, like a museum, because that's what links them to the person. You may have illness symptoms similar to the person who died, like maybe they died of stomach cancer, and you, as the spouse, develop this stomach pain that is not at all related to a real thing. It's a psychosomatic. It doesn't mean that you're not feeling it, but it's just an empathy. It's an empathizing, resonant pain. Suicidal thoughts, that's quite common. It's scary, but sometimes you have suicidal thoughts that you want to go with that person who died. We had someone who drowned in our island in Ireland when I was there. A baby 2-year-old fell in the water, and the mother, all she wanted to do was follow the daughter. Wanted just to go wherever the daughter was going. I'm jumping in. We had to sleep with her so that she wouldn't do that. Drug and alcohol use to cope, having dreams, often you dream about the person, mystical experiences, often people will have kind of a vision of the person coming and saying something to them, anniversaries of things that you like to do, birthdays or seasonal celebrations, holy days can be a time when you get triggered again, and it can be a moment where you need to pause and reflect. So these are all really good to know about, so that you're not feeling like you're isolated. That gosh, I'm the only one in the world who ever felt these things, and there's something wrong with me because I'm feeling those things. This is part of the transition. So grief is a spiritual journey. This is why this is relevant to us as practitioners of yoga, bhakti yoga, because it forces us to examine whenever we confront loss, be it death or some other dramatic loss, it could be divorce, it could be a health issue, then we have to go back to examining our fundamental beliefs. What do we really believe about life? Why are we here? Why do we take birth in this world? What is existence about? We're all going to die anyway. What's the point of going to school and working hard to survive? You're going to be dead tomorrow. Why don't you just kill yourself? Why go through all of that? because there is a purpose to life, right? But many people have to go back to basics and ask themselves, what's this about? What is life really about? So it's a good moment when you have a loss to pause and ask those questions. You know? So some of the misconceptions people have about grief is that grief and mourning are the same thing. This word mourning is something we don't use much in our English vocabulary, but it's really about expressing our inner grief feelings outwardly. And there are many ways to do that. But in order to heal or reconcile the grief, the feelings have to go outward, not just held inward, because inward holding manifests as mental and physical illnesses. It's a misconception to think that grief progresses in predictable stages. I know Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, a lot of people are familiar with these 5 stages of death in terms of denial and anger, and they don't go in order. So some people think that they can know where you are in your grief process by looking at stages. It's not like that. You may be angry sometimes, but you then might be more accepting other times. It's not a predictable stage. Um, Another misconception is if I just think of other things or if I avoid my grief feelings, they will go away. That's a big misconception. And so people think, and this is something you hear people say to people, oh, just keep working, just keep working. That's the wrong thing to do. The thing to do is to move in. The pain is more, the more you fight it or try to move away or avoid it, the more painful it gets. It gets louder. Why? To get your attention. Because grief is meant to, loss is meant to be tended. Just like if you don't mend your gash in your leg, you don't wash it, you don't tend it, you get probably germs in it, and now you have gangrene and you've got to cut your leg off, right? So it's trying to get your attention. Tears and grief are a sign of weakness. No, that's not true. That's what society tells you. It might be what you were told growing up. You know, particularly if you're a man, suck it up, don't cry, that's weakness. And so now we have this notion that we can't feel because I don't want to cry, because I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed, and there's a lot of stigma around non-acceptance for being so-called weak. Being upset and openly mourning means you are weak in your faith. That's something in religious organizations might be said or assumed, that if you were really a person of faith, if you really had strong, a great yogi, if you were really realized, then you wouldn't feel any kind of pain, emotional pain. There is a story I read in the, she's dead now, my god sister, can't remember her name, but she was writing about when Janaki, Mukunda's former wife, was serving him, and he got a letter, one of those aerograms from India from his family, saying that his sister was very sick and she would probably die. And so he's holding this, opening this, and she, as a servant, probably in the old days we were very immature, so so what does it say? What does it say? None of your business. He didn't say that. I would have probably said that, but he looked very sad. He was opening this aerogram, and his face looked very sad. And she said, "Well, what is it, Prabhupada?" And he said, "Well, the letter says that my sister's very ill, and she will probably die." And so Janaki says to him, "Well, why would that be a problem? You're a self-realized soul. Why would that you be sad about that?" And he said, "Because family affection and family attachment is the hardest thing to give up." So he had feelings. It wasn't that he was, artificially trying to pretend that he had no feelings. So 2 weeks later, he gets another aerogram from his family, and in fact, his sister did die. And Janaki delivered the aerogram, and he opened it, and she obviously wanted to know, what does it say? What does it say? And Prabhupada looked at it, and he closed it and put it down. And he didn't look, his demeanor wasn't as sad. And so she said, "What does it say?" And she goes, "Well, she died." And you go, "Well, last week, 2 weeks ago, you were feeling grief about that. Why are you not feeling sad now?" Because, well, I thought about it, and I realized as I looked at my sister's life that she had such an incredibly pious and honorable life that she probably went back to Godhead, and so I shouldn't grieve. So he had to reflect. and grow through that process. But it's not something we jump from 1 or 0 to 100. It's a process. And Prabhupada went through that process also. So as our model, it's good to see Prabhupada was a human being. He wasn't just a marble statue. So grief is a mixture of a whole bunch of internal thoughts and feelings that we have when someone we love dies. And mourning is active. It takes work. We reconcile or heal our grief by mourning through deliberate, ongoing mourning. It's an action. And so sometimes people say time heals all wounds. It doesn't. It just goes underground. And guess what? 30, 50 years later, if you haven't processed it, it comes back. My 95-year-old mother's still alive. When I went through chaplain training and I started to learn about how we are impacted by grief, she revealed to me that I had a brother who died as a blue baby. He died after 3 days in the hospital. And now she donated him to science. Now they have a cure for it, but in those days they didn't. And so she hardly got to see the baby. They took it away, and everybody said, "Don't worry, you're young. You can have another kid. Don't worry, no big deal. Like not a big deal." Well, she didn't. She didn't pause. She didn't reflect. She didn't go and cry a tear. But now, 70 years later, 78 years, 80 years later, she admitted to me that every year on my brother's death day, which came around the same time, she had an overwhelming sense of grief, and she didn't know what it was about. And then she'd go to the calendar and she'd go, "Oh my God, that's Keith was his name, his birthday, death day." And she said, I just was totally unconscious. It just kept coming back. And I told her, "Mom, why don't you just light a candle instead of trying to avoid remembering him? Light a candle on his death day. Make intentional to remember." And she said that after she started to honor his brief life, she no longer had those feelings of despair every year. So a lot of times people try to forget. In fact, my whole life with my parents, we had 3 children. My brother, who I never knew because he was kind of a ghost in our family, had a big impact on our family because we never talked about him, but he was present somewhere there. And the way my mother parented my sister, the second child after my brother died, was that she over-mothered her because of the fear of another child dying. And that had a ripple effect. When I came along, I had not only my mother smothering me, I had my older sister smother me too, because there was this unacknowledged anxiety about death because my brother died that we didn't ever know. So you just see how the impact in our nervous system, it's present if we don't deal. And the only way to break those cycles is to deal with it in your own life, right? So there's 6 needs of mourning, and they don't go in order. But in order to heal and reconcile, we need to go through not an orderly sequence, but we need to go, well, let me go to the next slide because I think that's more clear. We need to acknowledge the reality of the loss. That sounds really simple. Somebody died. Okay, they died. I know it in my head. But in order to really accept and to acknowledge it, it needs to move from head to heart level. Our body has to catch up. We have to embrace the pain of the loss, which means moving in, not moving away. Remember the person or place or thing that was lost. That means honoring it. If you had a loss in a family member, it might, on their birthday, be a moment to celebrate their life, to put a plate at the table for them, cook the things that they love to eat. This is one of the reasons why we do these things here in the Hare Krishna movement. We have, on Prabhupada's disappearance day, we offer food, we offer the things he loves to eat. It's part of our mourning part. It's part of our grieving process, is to remember, not to forget. We try to remember that person. Some people, in the immediate loss of a person, they put pictures, they make a little sacred table, they light candles, in a way to remember and honor. So what happens at a death, it's not that your relationship is lost or broken. You have a new type of relationship with that person who's gone. So the body's gone, but it doesn't mean that you are no longer having a relationship. Yeah.
How could that be adapted for something like this?
Well, it's a very similar process. You know, divorce is probably the next most painful thing to death. We have a grief support group for divorce as well. The big challenge with divorce is that the person is not dead, and so there is often for the person who might have not wanted the divorce, maybe both people do, but the person who didn't want the divorce always has this illusion or maybe a hope, false sense of hope that the relationship will now go back to how it was. And of course, when there has, even if you do go back to the relationship or you think that you're going to reconnect with that person, it's never the same relationship that you had. So the big problem, the hang up we have with loss is that we expect that yesterday is going to now be today. It's not going to be like today. You will have a new relationship. But that's the biggest challenge is that also the stigma around divorce for some communities, often cultures, there's a big stigma. I know in the Indian culture, that's a huge thing I've confronted in Melbourne where, gosh, even if your spouse left you and you didn't want the divorce, boy, there's a real social stigma. And it's very, very painful for the people who are now by themselves, maybe they're single parents, man or woman, and the society that's supposed to be supporting you is not at all interested even to have your association. This is the worst thing, is that now you become what we call in the West victim blaming, no fault of your own, and there's a lot of shame around that. People feel like, well, if I were a better person, I could have made it work, but. Yeah, there's a lot. There's some books I can refer you to if you want to. Yeah.
We kind of apply the six.
You can, yes, remembering, well, some of it, like the remembering the person, place, or thing that lost. People who move through divorce may also be grateful that they had the person. I mean, they had the person as long as they had, and remember some wonderful things or gifts that they gave them. It's never all bad. Relationships are even broken relationships. There must have been some reason why you were in the beginning had some attraction to that person. There was some, I believe, this is my own personal realization, that relationships are built on mutual need. And it may well be that one or the other doesn't need that anymore and they move on to another person, place, or thing because the needs have changed. But this is why I'm learning how to communicate and to constantly be checking in and growing together. If there's not vulnerability and transparency in relationship, it doesn't last. You've got to keep catching up because time is changing and you are changing and husbands and wife are changing as they grow. And they may change in different directions and have different things they take, it's a whole thing. So yeah, we can talk about that another time, but I need to get through this because I want to have time for questions. But yes, a lot of the search for meaning. When you have divorce, boy, people are devastated. It's not only the shame and the social stigma. You're trying to figure out, gosh, I thought the goal of life was to get married and have kids and live happily ever after. It didn't happen. Well, now what? What am I going to base my life on? You know. So that can apply to divorce and letting others help now and always. The big problem is when we are suffering loss, we don't want people to help us because we don't want to be a burden on other people. So we don't tell people we need help when we need help. We might just need to talk to somebody, and we don't want to dump our stuff on other people. And so we don't know where to go. If you're feeling that by yourself, and you're thinking, nah, I don't want to. I'm embarrassed to ask for help, and there's no space for you to go, and you also don't want it on Facebook tomorrow, right? And this is one reason why Karuna Care does so much online is because someone in Nepal wants to talk to someone in Africa because they don't want everybody in their community knowing they have a problem, right? And so we find that's pretty helpful because you don't know that person and they feel a little more safe. It shouldn't be like that in a caring community. We should be able to share our hearts and trust that that is a confidential story and that it's not my right to tell someone else's story. That's ethically, at least in our professional chaplaincy world, that is a total no-no that you're sharing somebody else's story, even if it's a new baby story that you want to celebrate. That's their story to tell, not yours. So these are just some needs. Grief can be a garden of compassion. If you have suffered yourself, you do not want other people to suffer the same way. So in some ways, that softens our hardened heart and makes us so much more tender. We start to recognize when we look around the room, we can tell that person is lonely, that person is suffering. You may not notice it otherwise unless you know that suffering. Now you can have more understanding. Um, the capacity to love requires the necessity to mourn. You can't really have love, you know, without grief, because grief is sort of a symptom that you have loved. You've loved a pet, even. Some people have incredible grief around the loss of a pet. I remember, I remember in Los Angeles, the temple president's sister-in-law. She said, "Rumber, I need you to come and meet some devotee whose child just died, and we need to offer her support." I kind of came on prepared to meet someone whose baby died or some child had died. And when I got to the place where we were going to meet, it was her cat. And the woman was absolutely beside herself because for her, the cat was the only being in the entire world who understood her and didn't judge her and gave her unconditional love. I was flabbergasted, but that's a real thing. Pet loss for many people your pets are your only real companions. I know my mother's cat who sits all day in her room watching television. That cat is her friend, and she talks to that cat, and she's sure that cat knows what she's saying, and I'm sure the cat does. And it gives her incredible comfort. So, just to reiterate, our pain is asking for our attention, our compassion, and our expression, because this will allow us to integrate our grief over time and eventually heal. Emotions are true expression of where you are in your grief journey. So, as you process and debrief and talk about and express your feelings and your thoughts as you heal, it's going to also help you know, where am I in that journey? Part of the symptoms of someone who is healing, or what we call reconciling, is that your life starts to go back to regular, predictable habits. So, one of the things that happens to people who have a traumatic loss or even just a normal expected death or loss is that you may eat more, eat all the time. Some people compulsively eat because it's a way of coping, or they may not eat at all. You may totally lose your appetite, and so you're just wasting away. Or you don't sleep at all because you're ruminating all the time about this pain of loss, and or you sleep all the time, or you don't sleep. These two extremes. You might be totally overwhelmed when you tell the story. You can't get through the story without just becoming overwhelmed. But as you tell the story again and again, you start to be able to tell it as part of your story, and find the gifts in it. That because this happened, I'm learning so much about myself. I'm learning so much about others and how the world works. I'm discovering parts of me that I didn't know. For example, if you're a wife and your husband dies, part of you dies with that, because your identity, you're no longer a wife, you're a widow. So your whole identity changes with that. If you're a mother and your only child dies, well, are you a mother? There's no child. So now you're trying to figure out, who am I now? So part of that examination is part of the growth, that you have to now find out, who am I now? And figure that out. So you may go through what's called a dark night of the soul. You've probably all heard of that. That's a predictable stage in a spiritual life also, to sometimes have times when you just wonder, I don't know what it's about. That's predictable in stages of faith, that you have perhaps loss of faith, or you question everything. That's a kind of a healthy thing to do. Often people are embarrassed to say, "Gosh, I have doubts about whether there's a God," or maybe the God of my understanding isn't how I thought. And, if God isn't how I thought, then what am I living for? That can put people in big crisis. We call it dark night of the soul, kind of just like, I don't, my, I don't know what to do with myself. It can be a very painful process. So it's recommended when you have had a loss, it's recommended that you do what we call dosing your pain. Um, Often people will hearing we're talking about now you have to grieve, you need to express and stuff. If you, I'm going to use the word, uh, you can get overwhelmed and stuck if you just sit and process your pain for days and days and days and days. And now you're paralyzed, you can't do anything, you can't function. It's recommended to do what's called dosing. And that means you spend some time, maybe you put on your schedule. Once a week, I'm going to sit for an hour and a half and I'm just going to let myself cry and scream and think and walk and be by myself, or I'm going to organize a time, maybe be part of a grief support group. Usually they dose it once a week or once every 2 weeks. There's a moment where you just explore all the implications of your loss. That is probably the most healthy way to manage your feelings, is that you just decide, okay, I'm going to put this aside and then have a time when I'm giving this all my attention. So that you're not pushing it away, but you're now bracketing it and putting it in a place where you can actually spend time on it with people who are there for you. Healing, when we say healing, it's not the same as curing. I know in healthcare, we, as a chaplain, you'll go bedside and people will want you to pray for a cure, pray for a cure, pray for a miracle. And of course, you're setting people up. If the person doesn't heal and well, your prayers are not any good. My father died anyway. You prayed, and that's so we don't set ourselves up as chaplains to promise, you know, healing in terms of a cure. But in truth, the word healing means to be able to fully accept what is. Curing is like getting fixed from a disease, but the word healing is a holistic ability to embrace what's going on in your life. So that can the idea of going from a loss to healing is the gradual process of coming to accept life without this person and being okay with it. That this has happened. I can't bring it back. I can't bring back yesterday. And being able to understand this is part of life. Part of the healing process requires you to nurture 5 things. And it's not just for grief, but pretty much to have sound mental health. Simple things like getting enough sleep, having a healthy diet, lots of plant-based, whole food, fruits and vegetables, sattvic food, we call that. Exercise, getting oxygen to the blood system and brain will make a huge difference, not just for grief, but any mental health issue. If you have depression, move the body. If you find yourself in a depressed state or grieving, get up and move, do exercises, swim, and you'll see that your whole mood will change. So important. Nourishing cognitively, to doing something to nurture your intellect, putting things in it, reading things that are uplifting, uh, dance, read poetry, things that nourish your spirit in using your brain. Learn something new. Emotional nurturing, nourishing that, expressing your feelings, doing art. There's an enormous amount of art therapy that goes on in hospitals for people who are grieving in grief support. If you can't talk about your feelings, paint them, draw them. What are you feeling? Uh, um, Again, dancing, dialogue, social, having connection. The problem with grief and loss and trauma is that you want to move away from people. You isolate. And this is pretty much the main cause of mental health issues, is that you start moving away from people. And now you're isolated, alone, and feeling abandoned and alienated. And what you need to be doing is having some healthy relationships. Doesn't have to be a lot of people. Find somebody that understands you, who's willing to listen without judging and advising and shutting you down. But we need people. We are social animals. And spiritually, if you're not a person who chants mantra, mindfulness, breathing, uh, some kind of meditation, listening to affirmations, again, connecting to that part of yourself that is eternal in some way is very important for healing. Reaching out for help, I was just talking a little bit about uh, finding perhaps a support group. We offer in Karuna Care grief support groups. I've done divorce grief support groups, and I've done suicide grief support groups because during COVID we had enormous suicide internationally in our movement. You know, people whose family members died, they couldn't get to them, and they didn't know what to do with it. You know, we had in our communities people who died, and the community was devastated. So you can't just leave that. If somebody in the community or in your family dies in a way that is traumatic, like suicide, you need to pause and talk about those things. So we have the possibility, if a group needs to have a suicide support group, we can do that. This is an important thing to know: the rule of thirds. When you're struggling and you have a grief or a loss issue, there's a third of the people who are there who are going to now come and tell you what you should do, and they're not interested in listening, and they're going to tell you you're crazy, and they're going to tell you that you need to get over yourself. Those are the people we call toxic people. Stay away from those people. It will not help you heal. Just decide, and it doesn't take much time. You could just share what, a little bit of something with you, and if they start giving you the whole 9 yards, they start pulling out the Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita or the Bible, and they're going to tell you how you're not the body and they're not really your wife or husband. You walk away because that's not going to be helpful, right? We tend to do that. People do that because they're uncomfortable with your pain. So it's their problem. It's not your problem. You have a right to have your feelings. The other thing is the other second person. You have people who kind of don't care either way. You know, you've had a loss. They don't know what to say. Most people don't know what to say when somebody's had a death in the family or somebody's died. And so instead of saying anything, they say nothing. I don't know what to say. Of course, now you're feeling really unloved and uncared for because nobody's saying anything, you know, and you want somebody to say, "How are you doing?" And then listen when you tell them. But then there's the second of the thirds is they kind of, you know, they're neutral in the sense that they don't, they're not toxic, but they're also not very helpful. Stay away from those people too. Don't mind them. So what you have left are the 1/3 of people who really are there to support, and they care enough to listen. And when they ask you how you are, and you say, "I'm really crap," I'm really feeling crap, they're gonna sit with you a moment or find that time because you deserve to have that time following the loss. And they will also, supportive people will also instill in you a feeling of hope. And you need hope when you have had a loss of any kind. And what hope means is an expectation of good that is yet to be, that this is not permanent. Even though I'm going through this pain, it's not permanent. And I have hope that it's not going to be forever. And with that hope that it's not forever, you can get through those difficult moments. But often you get stuck, and this is where suicidal ideations come. You're thinking, this is going to go on forever. I don't see an end to my pain, and I don't know what to do, and I can't reach out for help. And so, you know, because I don't know what to do. Uh, but people who are in your world who give you this hope, those are the people you want around you. Just ignore everybody else. You have a right to feel your pain. So our grief can only be reconciled or healed if we go through it and befriend it and express our thoughts and feelings. And gradually our grief will soften and become less frequent. This is something I've noticed as I've gotten older. I used to work also in a nursing home, an aged care home, that, you know, a lot of old people, as they get old, they get bitter. You've probably met somebody, old person who's bitter, they're angry, they're frustrated, they're not really happy people. And often, if you dig in their story, you see they have enormous amounts of pain and loss they haven't been able to process. They haven't been able to talk about, to cry their tears. If you actually let yourself sink down into that pain, what it does is opens your heart. It softens the heart. And that it's not comfortable. But there's a gift to it. If we can just um, surrender to it, this is what's happening, and I'm going to be with it as I go through rather than become a victim or bitter. But you do see old people who haven't done their grief work as they grow older. As you grow older, life starts to strip things away. They strip family away. Your kids grow up, they go away, they move to another country. You're an empty nester. There's a grief there. You know, mother's love. It's a heartbreak for parents as much as you want to see your kids grow up and go away. That's what they do, you know, and you want to be with them. Or maybe somebody gets sick and you can't do anything about it. But being able to accept and to sink and cry in that makes the heart soft. And that's what we're after as people who are pursuing unconditional love. These are just some ways that you can process in order to heal. Talk it out, cry it out, write it out. If you're not somebody who is very social, the research shows that if you can even just process your feelings in journal writing, get it on paper. No one has to see it. You can rip it up and burn it later. But they show that people who actually do journaling work and writing about their feelings, it knits back all, even in trauma, it knits back all these different synapses that get kind of scrambled when you have a significant loss. Just sitting and pondering, letting yourself reflect, going for walks. If you don't like to talk to people, talk to nature. When I went to college, I was by myself. I talked to the trees. I had nobody to talk to. I didn't care. You're talking out loud. At least it's going out. And I know trees don't criticize you. You know, just like your pet dog doesn't criticize you. They're the best conversation partner. Play it out. Painting, sculpting, dancing, art is such an incredible feeling if you have some skills or attraction to doing that. Signs of that healing, that you're healing and reconciling, is acknowledging the death's reality and finality, returning to regular sleeping and eating uh, habits, feeling peaceful with life as it is versus life as it was. I'm aware of the time, so I want to let's go to, you want to appreciate your transformation as you see you're moving through change. You want to appreciate that and mark it. I'm doing much better. I can tell my story and not get overwhelmed. 2 months ago, when I even thought about my person I lost, I just couldn't even talk. But look, 2 months later, I can talk. If you have somebody in your life who has had a significant loss, these are some things not to say to them. Probably things we do all the time. Oh, I know how you feel. It was for the best. Time heals all wounds. Don't say that. They are in a better place. Don't say that. At least they lived a long life. Stay strong. Be strong. It's time to let go. Everything happens for a reason. He brought this on himself. It was his fault. She's in a better place. It's been a while. It's been a while. Aren't you over that yet? It's another way for saying suck it up. He lived a long time. At least he didn't die young. God must have wanted her there. Oh, God wanted an angel. You know, people make up these things. I know exactly how you feel. I guess it was his time. Everything happens for a reason. I bet somebody said some of those things. That's what said. That's because what society says is all the wrong stuff. Better to shut up and listen. Yeah? Yeah. Be a good listener. These are things you should do. Just be a listener. Say nothing. Say, I don't know what to say. I'm just here to be with you. That's enough, right? Respect the person's way of grieving. People do it differently. If somebody wants to eat all day or sleep all day, that's okay. Don't guilt people for knowing that that's the only way they know how to cope. Accept mood swings. If you have a loved one who's going through grief and they're kind of like, wow, they said this today and tomorrow they said something else. I don't know what to believe. They're kind of going crazy. Don't shame them for that. Understand these are grief behaviors. Avoid giving advice. Just shut up about what you think they should be doing or how they should make meaning. Just don't go there. Refrain from trying to explain the loss. That's what we want to do. Why did this happen? Why did this happen? It doesn't matter why it happened. It happened. The question is, what now that it has happened? Now what? Not why. What now? You're not going to bring the person back because you say why. It doesn't change anything. Stay connected with that person and be available.
You may not know what to do, but be available. Continue to check in and offer words that touch the heart, not the head. All this explaining and justifying is just head stuff, doesn't help. Be a companion. We talk about chaplains as being companions, just journey with them, check in. Some families who have a loss, they can't even cook, bring food, sit down, clean their house, do their laundry, offer to do anything that will give them time and space to grieve. How to do that? I want to show that with you. Yeah, it was showing earlier, so I don't know if you can see that. Okay, well, we'll just stop there. Maybe I keep getting on your training and we'll show it in the afternoon.
Wait to the charge.
Let's pause here now because that's basically the end of the PowerPoint. I just wanted to drop that bomb on you and see if there were any reflections or any insights even about the history graph that you did. Did you learn something new? And if you did, what? Anything that you didn't know? Yeah.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
With speaking to somebody, there's so many things not to say, and the only thing that I heard was to say things that touch the heart and not the head. What are things that touch the heart?
I feel your pain. Just to hear you talk, I'm feeling sad to hear your sadness. Yeah. You may have had a similar loss, and you might want to share it because, I know that pain because you might touch on it and say, yeah, I lost my mother too. I lost my child too. I know I felt something like that. That can help a person trust that you really do know. But now to tell that story takes the focus away from them. So you can say that, but then come back to, because that person is now busy with their pain. It's not time to hear your story, war story of your pain, right? But that can be helpful. But mainly to talk about feelings, how has it been? What's it like for you that you've had that loss? Talk about it. Most people, like in the hospital, if we go to bed, talking to people who've lost health, they've lost limbs, they've lost loved ones, car accidents, and they are not sure that you really want to listen because it's so rampant that people don't listen. So if you go in and say, look, I'm a chaplain, and if you want to talk about your problem, I'm here to listen. I would be saying, hell no, I'm not going to dump my stuff on you. Why would I? I don't even know you. Why would I share my heart? But if you sit down and you ask a question, people see you've sat down, you're eye to eye, you're not looking over them, and you're saying, tell me your story. I'd like to get to know you. That's a different thing. Not that I'm here for your benefit. I actually want to hear you, and I'd like to know you. So tell me what's on your heart today. And that's going to change day to day. But just be there, and then be present. That's it. It's very simple. And whatever is now coming up in you as you're listening to someone talk, there's stuff coming up in you as you're listening, if you're tuned in. So you're listening with one ear to what they're saying, the other ear is listening to what's coming up in you in response. So then the next best thing to say is coming from here. Okay, as I hear you talking, I'm feeling really sad, or I'm angry that happened, or that's really frustrating. To hear you say that, now they know you're with them because you're tracking. You have feelings coming up in response to them. So say those things, not stuff your mom said or your aunt said to you, and you don't know what else to say. It's better just to be silent. And whatever comes up, comes up. Yeah. There was some device that was supposed to be capturing the audience, this thing. I don't know how it works, but do you know what he was talking about? That's supposed to be is there somebody who's going to be watching this who didn't get to come?
You said that hope is very essential in grieving. You need to have hope, otherwise you'll be suicidal. So how do you give someone hope when they can't have, if someone died, you can't give them hope that they're going to come back to life. But how do you give them hope that even though they're not getting what they're hoping for, how do you give hope?
Well, one thing that is so wonderful built into creation is that after death there's always life. We see that in the seasons, you know, and even in reincarnation, that philosophy. But not only that, when it's a transitional moment, you know, so it's not about saying, okay, well, the hope is that, you know, you're going to learn something. A lot of people say, what are you learning? But in fact, the hope is that this moment, this painful moment, is also a birthing moment, just like birth pain. Somebody dies, maybe you lose a home, or somebody dies, and right now you're thinking, I don't know how I'm going to go on. I don't know how, you know. It can be helpful to say, well, I don't know how you're going to go on either, but I'm going to be with you through it, and we're going to go through this together. You will come out of this forest. It's a journey. So one reason why having a grief support group where you go through these stages together, because there's some education needed to assure people that you will survive. People for thousands of years have lost loved ones, and they do survive. It's very helpful to talk to people who have lost major losses, and you can see often they're born again, they're new people, they're full of joy, you know. So that could be helpful also. If you have had a devastating loss and you have kind of gone through that healing, that might be some realizations that you share without being self-righteous about, look, let's suck it up, but to say, I know it's painful. I know, I almost died myself, but I know that you will eventually come out of this and you'll be all right. The trick is that they don't hurt themselves in the process, which is why you need community. People to love you through it. But it's not the hope of having somebody come back, but it's that you are changing. This is part of your changing, your transformation. And the hope is that you will somehow come out of it a new person, wiser, softer, with more capacity to love. And if the goal of life is learning how to love, then this could be a very important moment in your life, that your heart gets bigger. That's the hope. Anything else?
I just wanted to say that I really resonated with the, with the sleeping and the eating. Like, I've gone through trauma since I was 16. It's a constant. There's been trauma after trauma after trauma. So like the sleeping part is like my little cocoon.
Yeah.
It's sometimes like I feel guilty, but that's where I need to be at that time.
Yeah.
So to hear that and not feel that guilt of I need to get up and do it, and I need to do this and I need to do that.
Yeah.
Being in my little cocoon and just sitting or even sleeping, like not even sleeping, but resting my nervous system.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. You are the most important person in this. You got to do what's important for you, what gives you comfort. In fact, just if you have had a traumatic experience, one of the most comforting things is just wrap yourself in a warm blanket. Just stay in that, you feel like you're hugging yourself. There's other techniques I will be talking tomorrow a little bit about, is the pain of trauma. Underneath trauma is grief pain. It's post-traumatic grief. It's a pain that we're running away from in so many ways, but there are ways of soothing ourselves that we can use ourselves besides medication. Like there's a technique called havening, where you that you stroke yourself like a mother would do. And the hand, the energy out of your hands has this incredible soothing power just when you feel totally triggered.
Yeah, I put my hand on my heart and my stomach.
Yeah, there's lots of different things. You have to find something, even talking to people. But if you need to sleep and more than usual, you probably need to. Your brain probably needs to take a break. It can be very healing.
And not feel guilty.
Yeah, you may not be able to even meditate or even chant. Sometimes people will tell you, I know we had a spiritual teacher die a few years ago named Bhakti Charu Swami, and I was called into a couple of temples to talk to the whole community, because they were like, we don't know what to do. Everybody's telling us you need to chant more, you need to read more. It's not helping. Why is it not helping? We tell everybody just chant Hare Krishna, it's going to help. It doesn't, because, just like we started, it will help some, but the reality is if you have a broken leg, you've got to mend it. If you've got a broken heart, you've got to mend it. It's a different process than, spirituality. Your subtle body is an emotional part of you, like it's a holistic thing, body, mind, right? So you can sit in front of your leg or a car. If you have a flat tire, you can sit and chant forever. That tire is not going to fix itself, nor is your leg, right? There's a treatment for it. It's the same thing. When you have a broken heart, you have to do that repair work. It's not just sitting there chanting. That was a big question, Then, my husband tells me I'm not chanting already 64 rounds a day. It's not helping. So we went around and we started to talk. The whole community started to express their feelings. That's what helped them, is that to be listened to and be felt oneself cared for in a group of loving friends without judging, just being present. That's why ancient cultures, you see it even in the United States, which is not an ancient culture, but when somebody dies in a village, all the women cook some pies and some cakes and they come and they sit. And that's all they do, and they sit with the loved one, the people who lost something, because they know nobody wants to cook when you're grieving. In Jewish tradition, they have 30 days or something that they come and they just sit Shiva, right? Because everybody needs to be surrounded and cared for. You need to be hugged, yeah.
Can I ask
Please.
a question? So my father's got a terminal illness, and I've been through radiation. I helped him with radiation therapy years ago, and I fell apart and said, man, just go on and have, just not doing good here. So, and he's not well again. And my question is, I have a great relationship with him on the phone. He's had an amazing life. I love him dearly. He knows I love him. If I was to go see him now, just given the circumstances that my life is in, I probably wouldn't handle the situation knowing what I predicted in the past and what would. So, is it everyone says quickly go and see him before it's too late? He would enjoy that. It is a somewhat selfish protective mechanism to not go. What would be your advice?
Oh, well, everybody's different, and I've seen people do this differently. If you can't go, some people can't go.
I could jump in the car and be there in 5 hours. I just haven't done it in 2 years.
The most important thing in terms of a loved one who's dying, you have some unfinished things you might need to say, and they may need to say to you that you haven't been able to say. And the things that people need to hear and things that people need you to say, you may need to say, because you will regret it. For the rest of your life, your mind will go, I should have said that. As you grow older, you go, why was I so not callous? Why did I not?
No, he knows that I love him dearly. He wasn't. I just don't think. But I know it's just he's not going to be the same person that I've seen 2 years ago. He's going to be too much. He's not strong.
Is he able to talk with you?
Yeah, we talk all the time. He just doesn't seem to pass away. Bowel cancer, lymphatic cancer, and he's being treated for.
Yeah, it's a hard one. Well, that's something you're going to have to decide on your own. I mean, obviously, if you're talking to him, there's something really different about physically being present and touching them. Touching them. You could be very instrumental even in relieving some of the pain. I can imagine whatever he's going through sounds like it's a pretty painful process, even though they may have him on drugs and it's maybe numbing whatever pain. It's never easy to leave your body, as much as we say, oh, he's okay, he's ready.
I've been an aged care nurse. I've watched lots and lots of deaths, so it's just
It is always hard, yeah, and the anticipatory grief part is there too. But now I'm here in Australia, it's a choice between me, if my mother's dying, I lived with her for 5 years, or my son, being here for my son who's struggling to maintain cancer-free. I've got to decide, who, and I guess at that moment I'll have to make that choice. But you have to decide. It's lovely if you can be there and say one last time, Dad, I love you, forgive me for whatever, and I'm sorry, and thank you so much, to be able to say that, not just on the phone, but to look in his eyes and touch his hand, massage his feet, because our parents did a lot of sacrificing to keep you alive. If you've ever been a parent, it's no messing. I mean, it's a job. It's a 24/7 job. So whatever parents turned out to be as you got older, you have at least your own life to thank them for. And so I always encourage people, if they can, to go physically there and say those things. It's different than on the phone. I do know a devotee whose father was dying, and he had taken a vow to never leave Vrindavan. You know, he made that vow when he sat down in Vrindavan. He was some of you may know him. He's no longer alive now. And his brother called and said, "Your dad's died, so aren't you coming?" And he wanted to stay true to his vow, but what he did was, he got him a beautiful Harinam necklace, wooden carved necklace, and he had some devotee take it with a note. He wrote a beautiful note. And that's another possibility. And sent it through a devotee to him, and gave this to his father. It was a beautiful note, you know, thanking him and stuff. And then they got on the phone, and when he died with this necklace on, and his brother said that it was so meaningful just to have that token. So ritual can be very powerful as well. So it depends on if you can come or not come, but if you can, what is it, a flight?
It's not, it's the emotional, it's like, it's the past. It's like, I won't be in a good place. And if I'm not around, I don't have much, like I've got a lot of support here on the farm, but outside I don't have much. And so habitually bad habits will be
I know. So you can still reconcile some of this even after a person dies, you know, but this might be really helpful for you to have. Take somebody, maybe there's somebody who can go with you that who can support you.
Many people, so.
Get a buddy, yeah, if you can, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, why is this culture of spiritual bypassing so common in different communities, and also just in ourselves? Like, we can spiritually bypass ourselves and our own loss and feelings and things like that. Like, how does that? Why is it so?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in terms of trauma. It's a way of coping with our unprocessed grief. It all comes back to grief. This mix and mess of not being able to sit with that discomfort, that life isn't the way we wanted it to be. And moving from life is how I wanted it to be, it didn't happen. And so I can't accept that. So I'm sugaring it up. You know, we're going to talk about all the ways we can be addicted. It's not just drugs. There's so many ways, you know, that we are addicted to sugar and to our cell phones and our gossiping about other people and, you know, wasting time. So many ways we are addicted. Everybody has something. You know, you go to the refrigerator and you look in and you go, oh God, is God in the refrigerator? And I feel so unhappy. Let me see if God's in the refrigerator, you know. And I mean, if you have a home and you live in a home, I bet you go to the refrigerator when you're feeling bored or you're annoyed with somebody, you're looking for some sugar and fat. I mean, that's what we do, right? The carbs. You guys eat a lot of carbs here up in the top. I noticed that. Yeah, a lot of carbs. But it's part of the coping, you know, and if you start to be aware of what it is, then you can come back to reality. There's so many symptoms of that. Even this whole, when you're responding to somebody who's having an emotional pain or they're having a problem, often a symptom of being disconnected from your own feelings is that you're really disgusted with other people who have problems, right? So we kind of have in religious organizations, it's not just Hare Krishna people, it's everybody. You have the Christians that do it, the Jews do it. I have it because I'm training all these people and they have the same, they come out of seminary, you know, and they're all seeing it in a certain way and they think they got it and they're enlightened and they're so disgusted with people who don't got it, you know, they haven't seen it the way I do. And they have a short temper, you know, next thing you know, they're running off, you know, you have a priest and they kind of work at the Catholic Church a lot, the priest is running off with some woman or he's got children nobody knows about that he's given birth to, he's impregnated 5 different women and nobody knows because he's the bishop, you know. So all of these things are just like not accepting reality, you know, they're living in an altered state of mind. And, always having to see that it's all got to be painted positive, that this upbeat caffeine culture that we've been trained in. Life isn't positive all the time, or, sometimes it's pretty bad, sometimes it's hard. So being able to, this is why we need to be able to sit with our feelings without medicating them, because that's another way of medicating. In Yuma, where I was on the Mexican border, I became acquainted with a lot of bikers, and we have the Hells Angels in America. I've seen a few people in Australia that look like bikers, but anyway, in America we have a vibrant biker group with leather jackets and stuff. And many of them are alcoholics, and so they then go to 12-step. We were talking a little bit about this yesterday, 12-step program, and they get God. And now God becomes their new drug. And they're just unbearable to be around. They're born-again Christians, I'm like, oh my God, I liked you better as an alcoholic. But religion can be a way of avoiding you. That's what spiritual bypassing is.
Sorry, what did you just say? Religion can be what?
A drug. A way of avoiding your own humanity, is that now, we call it magical thinking in behavioral sciences, is that now, you start to see, or think you're seeing the divine light, and anybody who doesn't see, you're thinking you're realized because you can fast for 5 days, or, I know devotees who don't eat. They're very proud of the fact that they eat this much. And I'm picking out on sugar and fat, but I love it. And letting you know that they're so much more spiritually aware. Than that's all part of spiritual bypassing. A real devotee. 2 qualities. If you haven't read all our books, and if you have read all our books, what you're really aiming for, whatever religion you're a part of, is learning how to be totally honest and totally humble. That's the essence of all religion, to become compassionate. So now you're looking at people who are advertising how spiritually advanced they are. Well, then they don't got it. They don't have it. Yeah. A person who really loves God is not glorifying himself in this way. So you just need to know. I have a whole list of symptoms in my other PowerPoint, so come back for more. Maybe more teasers. Anything else?
We talked about our loss when we were younger, and how our parents maybe didn't address those feelings.
So
How would they better address it? How would they better address that?
I'm not sure of your question.
So we wrote down the things, our first losses.
Yes.
And then you said parents didn't address feelings. So how could they help you address your feelings,
Well, really important. If a parent is educated in what loss is and grief is, they should know, even with trauma, if a child has had a traumatic experience, like a car accident, or they've even been abused by someone, the best thing is to immediately ask them to express, to talk about it. Now, children don't have the vocabulary, just like adults don't have much of a feelings vocabulary. We're going to talk about that later today. But if a parent is educated enough to know when they've lost, even to the parent, it might be an insignificant loss, like a puppy or something. They should know that's a major thing for a child if they're attached to the child, to be able to let them talk about it and to validate their feelings. If they're crying, not to say, oh, suck it up, this is oh, I made a teddy bear, that's just a stuffed animal. But it could be a real being for the child, so you need to validate and say, what's it like for you? Let's talk about, have a memorial service for the teddy bear. You should treat it, the child, come to their level, join them where they are, and take that journey with them, I know my son's dog died in America. They had a funeral, they had a whole thing. They wrote poems to the dog. The kids got out the boat. You gotta validate and give space for that grief. And that's what a parent should do. Not easy if you haven't dealt with your own stuff, to get on your knees with your kids. That's why we need to learn about this stuff. Because if you don't do that with your kids, they won't do that to their kids. And it never ends. This cycle of impersonalism and voidism. We just keep transferring it, the dissociation, numbness. Yeah. My watch seems to be stopped. What time is it? Is it time for lunch? I'm thinking, I'm trying to honor your time to get up for lunch.
11:26.
Oh, so we have a little time. Okay.
I was just wondering, like, when you're grieving, you can be prone to like mental illness, and there's a certain part of supporting someone, and then also whether it's positive. So I just hearing you talk about, maybe the teddy bear or whatever. I understand with a small child, but it can also happen with adults that they are in a form of illusion, and that's kind of avoiding facing the grief. And you can encourage that, or how can you also maybe help them still see reality but still support them? Does that make any
You
sense?
have to do a lot of listening, but there is something. We'll talk about tomorrow how grief gets complicated. They call it post-traumatic grief. And there's certain things that happen to people, like a person dies by suicide, or you can't find the body of the person on war, in the battlefield, they never come home, and so you never get closure for some losses. And so it may well be that the person's needs are beyond your scope of practice, and you need to seek help from a professional who knows how to journey with them, because there's things you can do with a person to help them ease into something that they don't want to really face. And art therapy can be a wonderful thing for adults too. Just draw it. In our grief support groups, I have us draw certain things, and I have textbooks if you're interested. If you don't have an interest to learn more in the 5-week course, or to yourself enroll in a grief support group, there's a book called Understanding Your Grief, which is where I took a lot of this information from. And you can get it on a website called centerforloss.com. Alan Wolfelt is probably the most prolific educator of grief process. It comes with a journal with it. So somebody who is experiencing, if you can either have them think about grief in he has so many different journal questions you can either do with them or do in a group, if you have other people. We find that more powerful than one-on-one counseling is small groups, because what it does is it recreates the family system. And so if you had a broken family system as a child, if you have a small group of caring friends who love you unconditionally, then you can have a corrective experience, which is why I believe that religious organizations, they have an opportunity to help people heal by creating small caring groups. Because most of the people I know have a pretty troubled history of growing up. They didn't get unconditional love, and so it's really hard to know what that is, right? If you didn't get it, you don't know what it feels like. But that's part of our community job, is to help each other heal. It's part of why we're doing this. It's not unconditional love is not just loving Krishna unconditionally, but it's loving Krishna in the heart of everyone, and not just every human being, but every living being, which includes cows and plants. So just loving people and being understanding and not judgmental. And if you see people get stuck in their symptoms, and I will talk about them tomorrow, get them help. There's help out there. Yeah. Anything else that to talk about? Yeah.
In our tradition, there's this sort of contradiction where, on one hand, we're told you're not the body and we shouldn't lament for the living or the dead, and then on the other hand, we're told that a Vaishnava feels suffering when others suffer and feels happiness when other people are happy, or it has the greatest sadness is the loss of a Vaishnava. So we have this sort of contradiction. How to sort of deal with that in a society, in a community, to actually do it holistically and not just sort of like get on the, don't lament sort of thing, and at the same time we're meant to be soft-hearted, sort of how to deal with that.
Well, it's good to know, when you're know what the goal is, right? Just like we have these 4 regulative principles that, but what I've experienced after 50 years of practicing Krishna consciousness, people do not go from 0 to 100 overnight. It's a gradual process. And Prabhupada only talked about that. You don't chant purely. It takes 50 years to chant without offense. Good luck with that, right? 10 offenses. Read those over. Giving up all material attachment. Good luck. Yeah. What are you eating? What are you doing with your time, right? So I don't say any longer, I'm not the body. What I say is, I'm more than my body. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. But when my finger gets caught in the door, I am my body, very much so. Why? Because we're marginal energy. We have one foot in the material realm and we have one foot in the spiritual realm. So that's why Srila Prabhupada could honestly say, your health is more important than chanting Hare Krishna. That was one of his first instructions in the beginning. He put it in the kitchen. And that includes mental health as well. Because if you don't have mental and physical health, you can't chant. Forget about it. Trying to do some decent meditation. So he was very quick, just like Chanakya Pandit said, disease, what is it? Debt, disease, what else? There's some items you have to neglect. What? Fire in the house? Taxes, I don't know. But yeah, disease you don't neglect. So Prabhupada was very adamant that we need to take care of ourselves, because if you don't, you got nothing if you lose your health, right? So Prabhupada also said, I remember one of my friends was one of the first devotees who, she planted all the tulsis in Vrindavan and lived there a long time, and then she came to the West and now she's back there. But one of the things when she was trying to learn how to take care of tulsi, Prabhupada said, just use your common sense, and if you don't have any, ask somebody who does, So some of these questions, it's kind of an immaturity. Prabhupada gave us, in the Vedic scriptures are giving us codes, and Veda he wrote us codes and then elaborated on those codes, but time, place, and circumstance is everything, so you have to also get in touch with the Lord in your heart in that context and listen to the messages coming here to give you a contemporary, appropriate response to what's happening. So every community has what's called urban legends, and so we have these tendencies to have moods, and this is the vibe, and different groups develop a personality, right? But if you're talking to people who have any life experience about life at all, anything like the way life really works, it's not a straight line. And so some of the platitudes that we come up with are again impersonalism and Buddhism. I like to think Prabhupada came to the West to try and eliminate impersonalism and voidism. And impersonalism has to do with thinking that everybody has to be the same. Being personal is embracing difference, that people can be different. And they express the God consciousness differently, and that's okay. But it's our own impersonalism that's not okay with it. What's the matter with you that you can't? Or voidism, or sahajism, which means taking it cheaply. So we often think, I've been a devotee for 2 weeks. I must be a pure devotee. I'm self-realized. So done. It's cheap. It's a sahajiya. You're thinking it's a cheap thing. It's a big thing. It takes many lifetimes. So back to your question is that you really have to think about yourself in the context and get to know your inner voice, which is intuition and also Krishna's voice. And Prabhupada, if you read his books with that awareness of when he says surrender to God, he's talking about the Supreme Personality who's in your heart and everyone else's. And so you need to ask that question of yourself. What's really true? What is really true? Because God's in your heart. And you can only get access to God's voice if you're sincerely trying to be guided, asking for help, give me ideas, give me a guide, and Krishna will speak to you. So then you have to get away from some of the social norms in terms of, well, everybody's thinking it must be true. What I've realized, and other great thinkers, I'm not a great thinker, but what I've learned is that generally the truth isn't in the majority. So we are, as a Krishna people, we're not in the majority. We're kind of a minority group in every country. We're kind of the minority. But you break it down even further, even in our group, often it's not quite on target. You know, you have to go a little deeper and go deeper still to get the full truth. Yeah. So everybody's responsible for finding the truth. You read the text and then study them and then practice them and then critical thinking. You have to ask, you know, don't give other people responsibility for your work that you have to do. You got to figure it out. So you get to choose. Do I believe it? They said that. Now, dismissed someone by saying some scripture and shut someone down and hurt their feelings and harm them. Is that a misuse of scripture? That's something called religious abuse. Spiritual abuse is taking scriptures out of context. Why you do that? Because you want to hurt somebody. You want to put them down. That's religious abuse. I don't buy that. So you need to know what that is when you see it and just say, nah, that's not it. That's not skillful. Because a person who's realized is doing what's in the best interest of others. They're not using scripture to hurt people. Do no harm. Right? And that's a discipline, because society, any society, is going to push you to do what's the norm. And often you have to be the single voice that says, no, that's not true. And then they crucify you. That's what happens in societies. Yeah. But you have to be brave. Yes?
I just wanted to say thank you for doing this seminar. Like, on a subconscious level, we somehow know that we carry a lot of pain, but to have it be shown like that is very helpful. It made me realize how much pain my body contains, that it manifests into a lot of disease, both physical and mental. Yeah. So I wanted to say.
Appreciate that, yeah. And so much of our illnesses are dis-ease, anxiety, not being in harmony with our true self, who's Satchidananda in alignment, but also not paying attention to grief when it happens, and the body's now going to get your attention in some other way. Yeah, it gets worse. It compounds. If you don't resolve or heal it, another one comes and another loss, and now you have a whole bag of stuff that you're carrying around. Yeah. It's like having beach balls. If you go to the beach and you have these 2 beach balls and you're trying to hold them down underwater, you can only do that for so long until they come up. The same grief is like that. You can only repress it for so long, and then eventually it starts interfering with your whole personality and things you say and blurting out stuff that you don't even mean, but it's like having a ghost you're living with. Yeah.
Would you suggest that it's healthy to, you know how you said, like, pull apart half an hour a week, twice a week, and go looking for some grief?
Sit with it, yeah. It's good to have some questions. This is why there's a journal that goes with, when we take people through a process, we go for 12 weeks. And every week we work on a particular aspect of grief. It's like going on a journey. When you come to the end of it, you've learned how to cope and manage it in a way that is helpful. You actually go through a transformation when you start to see the gifts in grief. There's some gifts to be had, right? You become a new person. But if you don't take that journey, you don't get to the end of it. You get stuck, right? So having some questions can be really helpful. So I think you may be able to get this book as a PDF even in Australia. It's not the second version. I will look and see, maybe you all have taken put your emails down, maybe we can give some resources, but it's just really good to be in a group and do it in a group, because then you can, every week you're working on one piece and really fully reflecting, and part of the homework is responding to some of these questions just as a journal. But even if you're by yourself, sitting in nature, just being in nature and just sitting, bringing the person you lost in mind and sitting there, and what comes up is, who knows? You just have to be open to see what comes up. Just be there, that person. Yeah. Do we need where's that phone that we're supposed to do with? That's not working, right?
No.
Okay, go ahead. We just worried that some people won't hear your comments, but speak loudly.
I was just wondering, with this concept of the dark night of the soul, sometimes maybe it can appear like a devotee's life might become quite messy in the sense of like maybe their rounds might fall off, or maybe like their spiritual habits might, because they've lost faith in these pillars of that they've always relied on. But how can we stay non-judgmental of these things that might fall away as a result of a devotee going through this somewhat externally sort of messy, dark night of the soul?
Well, it's like a caterpillar has to struggle to become a butterfly, right? And you can't help it. It has to do that wiggling around. And there's a story about a little boy who saw a caterpillar trying to come out of this cocoon, and he thought, oh, I need to help it. I've got to help it get out. So he, pulled it out, just totally destroyed, the thing died, because you think you're helping. The thing you can do is just give people space to do what they're doing, and maybe offering them support, being available so that if people want to talk, they know they can come to you because you're not going to shut them down. Just being available, checking in, and loving them through it. Dark night of the soul is a real thing, and sometimes it's precipitated by an event that happens. And it's a story I tell a lot, but it's my own personal story of I hurt my back, and I was in a wheelchair for 2 months as a result of some granddaughter who pulled me some weird way, and I couldn't walk. I had to crawl to the bathroom, and pain medication didn't work, and I couldn't lay in a way that was comfortable, so I didn't sleep for several days. I was like, oh my God. And one thing I've learned as a chaplain with people coming in the hospital is that it's never about the issue. It's a spiritual crisis people are having. I was driving, I'm looking at my cell phone and I wrecked the car and killed somebody, or I'm drinking and driving and stuff. And you have to pull it down, but there's really a reason. It's not the diabetes. It's not the heart attack. It's not those things. There's a spiritual pain issue underneath it. So I had to apply that to myself. Okay, Rambhoru, you have now hurt yourself so badly that you can't sleep, you can't move. And then I had to start to pray. What is it, Prabhupada, that you are trying to show me that you have to get me pinned down to my bed in so much pain that I can do nothing but pay attention? What is it? I'm stuck. That's what illness is. You're stuck. Now you have to pay attention. Your life has to change. There's something you've done to get yourself there. You have created that reality for yourself. What is that about? Why did you choose to do this? You made those choices. I'm working 80 hours a week and, doing things beyond my ability, not having any boundaries. There's so many things. And for 3 days, I sat with that thought. What is it? Why did Prabhupada actually have to get me here? And after 3-4 days of just that, out of nowhere, out of Super Soul, I heard an instruction came right out. I've talked to some people, my friends, about that. Had a couple of those. It was like I'm talking to you. You know how in our Christian book we have Kamsa hearing something, but this came out of me, and it was a clear instruction. 3 things. Teach Bhagavad Gita, sing with your heart, and write. That's it. So I reduced my job, I started to teach, all these different things happening. But that's where we need to go. When you're in that dark night, you're stuck. Now, you've got to pray your way out of that, because it's suicidal worship. And that's why Lord Chaitanya is so merciful, because he picks up the most fallen. When you've gotten down so low, there's no way but up, right? You have to go up. So it's actually a progression. And faith goes in stages. It's a predictable stage if you're actually progressing. There's a stage where you doubt everything. You have a crisis, yeah?
It's nothing to be ashamed.
Huh? No, it's a predictable thing. In fact, sometimes people who have a stage like that are much more mature and advanced than people who for their whole life, they are socially connected to a religious organization, and they never ask any questions. There's blind faith. That doesn't mean that your heart is growing. You just like the puris and the sabji and the halva, but you haven't made any inner transformation. So sometimes you have a dark night of the soul, right? And that's okay. and I'm going to have a dark night of the soul with my computer. I hope it's going to work like work. But yeah, that's a natural stage, and I've got literature if you were interested to study that sort of thing. And James Fowler and Scott Peck, who are theologians and psychologists, both noticed as they counseled people of faith that was a predictable stage to, sometimes people get stuck, and Prabhupada also verified this, you can get stuck on a conventional religious stage, that now I'm in a religious organization, and we got it, we got all the answers, and I stopped asking questions. You got to make it your own also. Yeah.
On that topic, I feel like I've been sick for many, many years now. And I feel like I've asked Krishna to show me what is it that he wants me to do, but I still haven't gotten an answer. I was wondering, what is it in your question that made you get an answer in 3 days?
I don't know. I guess I was desperate. I don't know. It was just one of those things. It was my journey and my realization. You may have a totally different experience, but that's okay. Right? We don't need to compare our experience to others. You have your own experience, and Krishna will reveal himself in his own way to you. But maybe there's some things you're learning that I'm not learning in my journey.
No, it was not a matter of comparison. I was trying to understand what is it that I'm doing wrong. Maybe I should do something to get my answer free.
I don't know. I'd have to know you better. I guess we'd have to have a conversation to see how to. We have it's a whole other class, but talking about our unconscious and how there's certain things that I know about you that you don't know, and things you know about me that I don't know. But there are things about me I don't know and you don't know. It yet to be discovered. But what I do know is that somehow or other we've made choices to get us here. Whatever, consciously, knowingly, unknowingly, we've created what we have now. Why did we create it? How does what our life is right now serving us? How does illness serve us? Right? That's a hard question to ask. What am I getting from being sick? That's a hard question. Why would anybody choose to be sick? So there's many answers to that, but I think I'll divert off into another topic if we go there. We could talk maybe sometime. Anything else? Or you're fed up now? You've had enough information. Go ahead.
How do you know when someone is like crossing the lines from normal or expected, ways of breathing to harmful behaviors, especially when they don't necessarily show it evidently, like that they're engaging in harmful behaviors or patterns? How do you notice that? What would be like concerning signs?
Well, some of the symptoms that are byproducts of like you had traumatic experiences using substances to cope, unhealthy, like behaviors that are excessive that do you harm. You can, oversleeping may not do you any harm, right, if you need to sleep. Overeating may not immediately do you harm. It might in the long run. You may, it really depends on the person. But if the person is isolated and you don't know what they're doing or how they're doing or coping, then you may never know that they're telling you, I'm fine. You may know they're cutting themselves, which is a common thing when people are numb. They're cutting themselves, or they have a plan to kill themselves, and you don't know it until they do it, right? And to know that when you have suicidal ideations doesn't mean that you need to kill. That's not a message that you should kill yourself or your body. It's a message that's saying you need to change something. That's where the super soul is telling you there's something in your life that you need to change immediately. You need to course correct. That's why the alarm is coming up, and it comes out like kill yourself. That's not the message. The message is something in you has to die, a behavior pattern, a thought pattern, an attitude. You need to course correct or you will die or hurt yourself, but not that you're supposed to kill yourself. But if you don't have anybody journeying with you and to talk to who's safe, then they may never hear that. You may never know what they're doing. Not everybody's going to reveal that they're cutting themselves. We have a lot of people, I've met young people that are cutting themselves. Why would you do that? You have Hare Krishna mantra. Why would you cut yourself?
But also, like with cutting and self-harm, it's like, you know, the emotional pain is too much.
Yeah.
You want to feel something physical.
Right? Wow.
So, like,
Right.
still-
It's all coping. It's all coping with the pain. But you may not know if people are suffering in silence. You don't know. Which is why having community and heart-connecting relationships is so important for our survival. And I mean, you look at us as cavemen. Every animal has a tribe. We have a tribe. Why do we do that? To protect us from danger. You know, the safety in numbers, not just tigers and lions and bears, but from ourselves. You know.
Yeah, it's just that, for example, my mom had this friend that was going through loss and grief, and you know, from outside she looked like she was coping and she was happy, laughing and joking like normal, you know, and then she committed suicide like 2 weeks after, and it leaves you with that feeling like, is there any way that we can notice?
Maybe not. Maybe not. Sometimes people, when they finally resolve, they might be feeling very sad and worried about how they're going to go on. And then when they finally decide that they're actually going to have resolved to kill themselves, then they feel happy because they've made a decision. And that's very confusing for the people around you because you're thinking, well, they're okay. But also, often when a person has suicidal ideations and they decide, they do it in 10 minutes. You know, it's like if you haven't caught it in 10 minutes, they're done, they're gone. And that's part of the anxiety and grief around the people around them because they feel like, if I'd known, I could have stopped, you know, I should have done more for that person, and they blame themselves. When a person has finally decided to kill themselves, it's not your fault. They've made, whatever you do, they would have done it anyway. So, but if there's people around who are available and willing to listen, they're more likely to at least have a chance of talking to someone. Because suicide's really a call for help. I need help, I don't know what to do. My situation is so unbearable, I can't see a way out. That's the only way out. And some people's lives are pretty painful, you know, maybe they've done something shameful that they're afraid to be rejected or they can't face because they know that if everybody knew that about me, then they wouldn't like me anymore. And that may be true, you know, but how do you help a person move beyond that to know there is life after a crisis, there is life after a boo-boo, you know, we're human beings, we make mistakes, we're not perfect, we will never be perfect. And Hare Krishna philosophy is not about being perfect. Perfection in Hare Krishna philosophy is perfect love. That's what we're after. It's not being perfect. It's how do we love perfectly. And that involves compassion and forgiveness and all those things that we don't know yet. Okay, anything else? All right, yeah. You want to see if my computer works? Yeah, we might not have a workshop this afternoon if it's not
Yeah, don't be that one.
You saw it?
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Huh? Please, there's a little man in there. All right, well, I'm going to be around. We're going to have a table. Yeah, it looks like it's working. Thank you. So I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here about 4 o'clock, and I don't know if there'll be different people or other people or something. If you've already.